So, you want to be an MLF co-angler. You came to my boot camp, you came to the right spot. Today is episode 3. We're going to talk about your basic co-angler skills. There's 2 types of skills. There's some soft skills and there's some hard skills. The soft skills we're going to talk about today: managing expectations, interpersonal communications, very important, tournament prep skills, knowledge of basic bass angling techniques, knowing seasonal watering patterns and techniques, and a real key one is paying attention to the boater and interacting with the boater. On the hard skills, we're going to talk about things like knot tying, netting, casting, versatility and accuracy, knowledge of executing on specific bass angling techniques, fish landing, flipping ability and netting, taking hooks out maybe a little bit. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is very important. That's managing expectations. You're not the boater, you're the co-angler. There's all kind of different co-anglers. There's co-anglers that are just looking for something to do. They're out with their buddy. They're out to have a nice day on the lake. Okay, bucket number 1, easy speasy. You're gonna have a great time 99% of the time, no problem. And then you have the co-anglers that are a little more serious. They're competitive. They like to get a check. They've been doing fishing. They want to be at the tournament. They're trying to get better. They may be wanting to move up to the front of the boat, or maybe not. And then you have bucket number 3, the extremely competitive angler, co-angler. I put myself in about bucket 2.5. I can't take myself too seriously from the back of the boat because you have no control. There's some excellent co-anglers from the back of the boat, but the number 1 rule is you can't get too aggressive with your boater. You're there to learn. You can be competitive, but he's put in the big money, the big effort. He's fishing out of the front of the boat. Although the rules say no one can impede each other's fishing, the etiquette rule is half line of the boat. He gets everything in the front 180 degrees. You get everything in the back 180 degrees. Okay, use that to begin with. Now, you can talk to your boater about stuff, and it makes sense to be a little proactive about, how and where you can cast, or, you'll get an idea the day before very quickly when you're out on the water how competitive he is. He may have big stuff on the line. He may be a pro, a semi-pro. He might be just a weekend warrior, and he says, cast anywhere, come on in here. Okay, or he might say, you can cast at anything once I'm done. And that's the kind of rule too. If he's like throwing into a laydown, don't throw in right behind him, okay, unless he's asked you to or he's said it's okay. Interpersonal communication skills. Okay, the first thing you want to set up is you have a phone call the day before after they draw the numbers here. They used to have a face-to-face meeting, now it's a phone call, and you got to get the basics out of the way. Where are we meeting? What time are we meeting? Some basics about, okay, you're going to have ice and water. Am I going to have space for my tackle bag in the cubby or not? And then a little bit about, where we're going to fish. Okay, we're going to be shallow or deep. Are you on a pattern? Are you not on a pattern? Is it junk fishing? And in general, he'll give you an idea. Sometimes boaters tell you exactly what they're doing, and that's what they do. Sometimes they tell you exactly what they're doing, but things change, and you can't prepare for that. And sometimes they want to be a little bit elusive because they know co-anglers talk, and they don't want to give away their patterns. So, shallow or deep, are we going to take a long run, close, cold, storage. And wherever he says, hey, I want to meet here, you go meet there. And you do not be late. You don't say, hey, can you come pick me up? I don't want to be there that early. Not cool. There are some boaters, they're like, I'm going to be in the water on 4 a.m. for like a 6 o'clock tournament. Well, some guys just like the peace of mind and getting there really early and being, way ahead of everything. They're like, just call me and I'll pick you up on the dock and okay. Sometimes they're asking if you could back the boat in or not. Please be very truthful about if you have that experience or not. These are $100,000, $50,000 to $100,000+ rigs and electronics, and another $80,000 to $100,000 pickup truck. We're talking $250,000 here. Tell the truth. Boaters have had to deal with people who can't back in the boat, or park the truck. Sometimes they can just get you lined up. Okay, get me lined up, on the ramp, and then I'll dump you in. And sometimes it's just like, dump me in and I can drive the boat and come pick you up. Work that out, however, you need to. Another subject is cash. It is typically to give about $50 for gas. Now, it's not just gas, it's to help out with the expenses of the boater. The boater's got a ton more expensive. It's not just the entry fee. He's got a boat. He's got to haul that boat, who knows how many 100 miles, even if he only drives 2 miles on the lake. He might have been on the lake practicing, trying to get you on good spots for 3 or 4 days. Stuff breaks on a boat all the time. Boat, bring out another 1,000. I got a boat. I know the acronym BOAT. It happens all the time. Really expensive. That's why if you go on a guided fishing trip, from 4 to 6 or 8 hours, it's going to be somewhere from, $300 to $800. And that's freshwater fishing. Saltwater fishing, even more. So keep that in mind. It is good to just get that out of the way so you don't forget about it. It makes the boater happy. It just makes for a better day right off the kick. Another interpersonal communication skill, is right away. Hey, do you want me to land fish? Are you going to call for the net? Do you like the net in the water? Hey, I'm not really good at netting. The boater will net him himself. So, be honest on that too. And if you're a little bit about netting, watch some videos. Ask them for some tips. Everybody is different. Treat everybody with respect. You'll be treated with respect on the payback. And, especially that don't be too aggressive here. I guarantee you that will backfire and you will be backboated bad if you start throwing up in front of the boat into his fishing area. Unless he invites you up there. He might invite you up there all day. He might say cast anywhere all day. He says, okay, you can throw in now. He goes, I'm okay as long as you're 5 yards away from me or 20 yards away from me. Or, I'm okay if we're hugging a bank and going right along with it. Just, don't cast in front of me and don't have it like whizzing by my ear like you're going to hit me with something. Very important stuff. Interpersonal communications, I guarantee you'll have a much better day. Now, some people are talkative, some people aren't very talkative. I'm pretty talkative on my videos, but I've had people that are, they're in the zone, they're serious, they don't like to talk. They might want to talk a little bit more after they get a bass or two if things are going good, or if something goes bad, maybe you need to back off. You got to have that feeling. It's like anything else in life. Walk a mile in somebody's shoes. Everybody can have a bad day. You don't know what happened the day before, a week before, to this guy. He could be the greatest guy on the planet. He's just having a bad day or bad week. So, take that into account. Other soft skill we need to talk about is tournament preparation skills. There's varying degrees of this. I mean, if you fished these circuits for a while, you almost didn't even know anything. Oh, I'm going to Lake Shelbyville in the spring. This is what the weather is going to be. I know what I need to do. It doesn't matter what the boater tells me. If we go deep or shallow, I'm going to be prepared, and I know. Or it could be a new lake, or you could be just learning the seasonal patterns on a lake. You could have just had crazy weather in the spring. You got flooded out, or it's completely, it's 8 feet low, and stuff like that. There's a lot of online forums where you can do stuff like that. You can talk to your other co-angler buddies. You can ask your boater a little bit if he's been out there practicing. Before I knew boaters, sometimes I go out and practice and ask to hop in just a half a day the day before. It doesn't help a lot as a co-angler because it's not like, you're going to really get cued in on areas or not. But sometimes it's nice just to have, here's the water clarity, here's the water temperature. I threw a couple lures, even though they were small ones, or I had a couple nibbles on this. They weren't liking that. I mean, sometimes it's a key, but weather and conditions can change overnight like you wouldn't believe here. So you got to go with the flow. So have some basic knowledge, because you got to pack the right gear like we talked before, the right rods, and you can't bring too much. You can't bring everything. So, You know, if you don't know, bring basic stuff, bring it to your strength, and be a little bit clued in before. Next thing is basic bass technique knowledge. Don't go trying new stuff on a tournament day. The boater might show you something. Watch him thoroughly. It might be worth your time to even stop fishing if he's got a new technique you haven't done and he's really nailing them on it. Because let me tell you, I've had experiences where a guy's fishing a tube, and this guy was fishing a tube different than anyone I've ever seen before or seen on videos, and he was catching a lot of bass on table rock. And I'm like, oh, and I just sat there and watched him. I asked him a couple questions. He seemed very willing to talk about it. Sometimes he won't talk about it. Sometimes you just got to watch. So that's one way to pick it up. But that's part of the co-angling experience, is that learning. You're with, you know, guys that have fished all their life. They're semi-pros. They used to be pros. That's how you get better. Sometimes the very subtle ways in which people work a bait. Everybody works a jig different. Everybody works a Texas rig kind of jigging. Everyone shakes a minnow a little bit different. You can see, you know, multiple good boaters doing the same techniques but a little bit different. And you're like, put something in the brain here for next time or when I'm in a boater on that. But back to the techniques. Have a few techniques down. What's the most, you know, basic techniques that a co-angler's got to have? Okay. Number one, co-angler's best friend in deeper water is a shaky head worm. Okay? There's a few different ways you can work that shaky head. Literally put it down there and shake it. Move it really slow, shake it. Sometimes you don't even need to shake it. If there's a little current in the water, you just slowly move it. Sometimes you kind of want to swim it and drop it. Swim it and drop it, almost like, you know, swimming more of a cuttail worm or something like that here. But a shaky head, practice that one at home. Have one tied on. Senko worm. Senko worm, one of the biggest fish catchers at all time for shallow water. Shallow water killer. It's not a power technique. The boater is rarely doing Senkos, although you'll see them do it sometimes. You can Texas rig a Senko too, if it's a little deeper, or sometimes they just kind of want that Senko on the bottom. Or, you know, a basic Texas rig, know how to Texas rig some baits here. You know, you probably want a smaller bait, smaller jig, unless you're really whacking them and it's, you know, perfect season for jigs, and you're having that opportunity. Lake of the Ozarks, a million docks, jig fishing heaven, even as a co-angler. Every time you turn around, there's docks everywhere. So, you know, that can be a really effective lure. The power lures, like your crankbaits, your spinner baits, your bigger jigs, you know, the boater's typically going to be doing a bunch of that stuff. You don't want to be doing the exact same thing, you know. You know, dock fishing is dock fishing, tossing docks here. You want to have a different color. You want to have a different size, probably smaller. It's probably better to, you know, I've had a lot of times where, you know, guys got dock fishing and the shaky head around the dock or the Senko around the dock works really well. Chatterbait. Chatterbait's not quite as powerful as a spinnerbait. It's not quite a jig. It can be fished like a jig or kind of like a spinnerbait. It's a real versatile bait here. You can get it up in the water column. You can yo-yo it. You can just pull it on the bottom. Another really good technique here. And then, you know, crankbaits are crankbaits. They're always going to be there. And if it's, you know, early in the spring or cold water or really late in the fall, I hate to talk about the devil rig, but the A rig is a deal here. It plays in those circumstances for sure. Have a more compact A rig. And then, you know, one of the other big time, you know, highly recommended rigs for and skills as far as fishing technique knowledge is a Carolina rig. Carolina rig, dragging it in back of the boat especially, and or a Texas rig plastic, you know, or a tube or something like that, you know, in the back of the boat in that fresh water. You're getting the same angle along the shoreline that the boater had, just coming the other direction. Yes, it can hang up a little bit more, Don't use the big ball weights, big bulky weights, or use the elongated skinnies here so they don't get caught up, and don't use really heavy weight here. It'll really help you and get you through those. So throw those all together, and according to the season, a top water. Use a smaller top water or a popper maybe. That comes up as a highly recommended skill and bait. Know how to work it. You can walk the dog. The popper you can leave in place. You can kind of chug it if it's a chugger, if it's a small spook. There's mini buzz baits you can use too here. All kind of good stuff. The small whopper ploppers. But there again, unless your boater's really whacking them, you want to be doing something different, a different look, and a different water column. So know what those techniques are. Master those 4 or 5 techniques, and have those lures with you in a lighter or darker color according to water clarity. And just know those techniques. Fish your confident, techniques, as much as you can. And if the boater's catching them on a new technique or something you're not aware of, that's why you're here. That's the learning opportunity. That's why you're a co-angler in the back of the boat. You're going to learn it firsthand. And no soft skills. Remember, communicate with the boater. Kind of sense his feeling. Kind of sense if he wants to talk to not. Sense if he's having a good day or a bad day. And always be supportive. Always have that, way to go, when he catches a fish and in all of that too here. It really helps for a better day for everybody. Okay, the hard skills. Number 1, knot tying. My first co-angler tournament, I tied 2 bad knots and lost 2 fish right off the kick the first time. It was early in the morning. We went out there. I had stuff tied on. The first time I got caught up in the rock, and it probably would have come off, but the knot came out because I was out tying in the dark the morning of. Do it the night before. But don't do it the night before when it's dark. Either bring it inside, have a headlight, or tie it up before dinner, before it gets dark. Know your knots. Know a few different knots. Test your knots. Always make sure your line isn't frayed. Check for frays whenever you're going to get caught up into something or caught up into the rocks here. Check it out. It's always worth the 30 seconds or 20 seconds is all it should take you to retie. You should know a few different knots. There's the cinch knot, the improved cinch knot, the Palomar, okay, the uni knot, and then if you're doing braid the fluoro stuff, the FG is probably the easiest. Some people say you can do a uni to uni. FG is hard to tie on a boat, especially if it's bouncing and winding. If you've got, fine line and you're an older guy and you need to get your glasses on to actually, to see stuff here. So you need to have those knots down and ready to go before you get out on the boat. Practice it at home. It's simple. Okay, netting. We talked netting a little bit. Watch some videos. There's lots of my videos and other co-angler videos here where you see a bunch about the netting. Sometimes the boater will bring it up with you. If he doesn't, before you get out there, before you need it, where's the net? Have the net ready to go. Casting, versatility, and accuracy. This is one that is so uber important in fishing. It's perhaps, after the mental game, the most important basic skill of a co-angler. Okay, casting where you want to cast, whatever the wind conditions are, the wave conditions, the boat conditions, the lure type, boat direction, wind direction, type of reel, pound test you're using, all of those things come into play. This is something you must practice to get better. Do not practice casting during a tournament. You practice before the tournament. You see all these videos. Put a 5-gallon bucket in the backyard. Practice flipping. Practice pitching. Even with a spinning rod, accuracy, usually you're throwing lighter line and lighter baits and the wind can really take it. Can you feather the reel? Okay. Do you know how to play the wind? Do you know how to sidearm it to keep it out of the wind when the wind is blowing? Do you know that if you're, according to the type of lure, if you see a nice target, usually you don't want to dump in right on the target. Sometimes with the jig you do on a dock. But if I like to see a stump out there where I'm throwing either, definitely a moving bait, I want to be past it. I want that lure in the right water column. If it's supposed to be on the bottom, or if it's supposed to be like a foot down, or if it's supposed to be on the surface, where it doesn't spook the fish where it lands on their head. I bet 70% of the time, if you land right on the fish's head, he's spooked and he's taken off. But if you land 10 feet away from him and bring it in front of his face, then he's going to attack it. Think about that. Trey McKinney made a great comment last year. Well, I'm thinking like the fish. Where would I sit? The current's going this way. The log's that way. The grass is that way. Where would I position to ambush that bait? Which way is the bait going to have to go across his face? Because the first time you make a cast into a piece of structure is the highest percentage on getting a bite. If it's not at the right angle, or you scare him, or it's not at the right speed, or your lure is not at the right part of the water column where you want it, you might have just blown it. It takes that much pre-thought to what you're doing. And for all of these things, you have to be incredibly accurate with your casting. Not only does it take practice, you need quality gear. I'm not saying you need to go out and buy $500 Loomis slots and $500 Abu Garcia Xenons, but you can't buy the $50 combo. The $100 combos, to me, you shouldn't be tournament fishing with them. To me, the minimum you need to spend on a decent entry-level tournament co-angler setup is literally $100 for a reel and $100 for a pole. And these days, it's usually a little bit more. But if you buy them as a combo, you buy them online, you buy them at the end of the year before or whatnot, maybe you can get it for that much, maybe you can get it for a little bit less. Until you find out, what you like, and you start figuring out, I really need a chatterbait specific rod. I really, fiberglass or whatever, or I really need a better feel on this pole, for these types of baits, or for flipping, I like this, or I'm casting underneath docks, so I need a shorter rod here. Then you can get kind of technique specific. I mean, basics for a bait caster is 7 foot medium heavy, right? And, get yourself a reel. If you get 2 casting reels, get one at a higher speed for, flipping and returning, like a 7-to-1 or something like that, maybe an 8-to-1. You'll give up power for that speed, and then you probably want one 5-to-5, 5-3-to-1, 6-1-to-1, 6-3-to-1. Some of that medium lower speeds for bigger baits, or when you got to winch them out of grass or weeds or something like that here. And then your spinning reels. Typically around here, line sizes for, bait casters, 15's pretty versatile. Smaller crankbaits, smaller rods, I want 12 for better action. If I'm throwing in the gnarly docks and weeds or something, maybe 17 to 20. And then on the spinning rods, I tried 6. 6 is really a little bit too light for me. I know it gets the best thing. I bring a spinning rod with 8 and a spinning rod with 10. And that'll set you up pretty well. And you got to know, lighter baits are going to be affected by the wind more. If you have something like a flat-sided crankbait, it's going to waffle in the air and it's really going to take care of it. If you've got a really nice mega bass jerk bait that's got the weight balancer system, or other lures have that weight balancer system, it really helps them go straight into wind and cast. If you don't, they're going to waffle up in the air. So I know I've spent a long time on it, but it's got to make sense. You got to be accurate with your casts. You got to know where to cast, how to cast, where to put that lure, what kind of lure, and how to work it to be successful. You can catch a few fish like a blind squirrel twice a day, but to be effective, you've got to master the basics. Specific technique skills. Definitely you're going to be doing a lot of flipping and pitching in the early spring and late fall. Jerk baiting, specifically techniques you should at least be knowledgeable of, watch, some videos on, and, kind of crank baiting, shaky heads, Carolina rigs like we talked before here. And each one of those techniques, there should be probably, think about 3 different types of retrieves. And each one of those 3 retrieves can be at different speeds, slow, medium, high. One would be just drag on the bottom, one's hopping a little bit, hopping a lot, yo-yoing, or actively pulling it more vertical through the column, okay? Or on the top, or walking the dog, cadence of walking the dog, okay? Cadence of popping a popper, okay? That's the type of stuff, once you start getting that, gets a little more advanced, but know the basics for those, techniques. Do you have to know all 6 or 8 of these techniques I talked about? No, you don't have to be a master of them. You should be learning them or prepared to learning them or in the process of learning them or going on the boat specifically to learn them. But to be effective in a tournament, you better have 3 of them down pretty good. That's what I'd say. All right, so in summary, guys, we've got hard skills and soft skills. Soft skills are interpersonal communication skills, figuring out the psyche of the boater, figuring out how to have a good time out there, getting along with them, and knowing that he's got a way more skin in the game and a bigger investment than you. You're going to have a much better day. And then you got to have, the basics down of bass fishing, casting, knot tying, techniques, basic lure selection, basic mastery of at least a few of the most popular techniques or what works for you. Everyone's got their own style, and that's cool. It's pretty awesome here. So kind of rambled on a little bit longer. You get me talking about fishing. I can just go on for hours, but that's how we all are. We got a big passion for the sport. Hope you do too. Hope this helped you guys out. You pro co-anglers out there, did I miss anything? You got some comments? Should we add or change some content in here? Comment below. Let's get the conversation going. So thanks for coming along for the ride here. Hope you like the series. And why don't you stay tuned for the next episode in our boot camp, Co-Angler Strategies.